Can I get found on the first page of Google? This is generally the first question we get asked by just about anyone who rings us. Now, if you want to be found on the first page of Google, the first question is, well, what do you want to get found? What I mean by that is, let's say you're a plumber in Perth. Sometimes we have people ring up and say, well, if I type in the word plumber, I want to get found on the first page of Google. Well, that's not really very realistic. Now, the trouble is, being found on the first page of Google just by typing in the word plumber, it's not very realistic. It's going to be difficult to do, and it's not really going to help you too much. If you're a plumber in Perth and you do actually go to the trouble so that after doing all your SEO you get found on the first page of Google just using the word plumber, then it probably means you're going to attract people from Sydney and Melbourne and just about everywhere, as well as the people from Perth. So basically you have an awful lot of people ringing you up. You're wasting their time. You're wasting your time. So when you start doing SEO, the first thing you want to do is think local. Now, we're a training company. We do SEO training, and we're based in Joondalup, which is just north of Perth. So let's bring up Google. As I say, we're an SEO company. We provide training, and we're in Joondalup. So if we do a search for SEO training Joondalup, which is probably what our local customers will search it for us, let's have a look, see what we get. These first items up here, 1, 2, 3, the first 3, those are what are called pay for displays. They're pay for adverts, as are the ones down the side here. So basically, if you want to be displayed up here, that's nothing to do with SEO. That's just simply to do with paying lots of money to Google. SEO is all about getting your website found, ideally on the first page of Google. So here we are, we're in Google. This is live. We typed in SEO training Joondalup, which is where we're based, and that's what we do. And if we scroll up to see who's first, there's a little picture of me, and that's our website, seotraining.com.au. For seotraining.com.au, and we're actually first and second and third. So we've actually bagged the first 3 spots. I think that answers the question, is it possible? It is possible, and the worst thing is there's actually quite a few SEO companies in Joondalup. As you can see, we're first there for that particular phrase. And the worst thing about our business is, by definition, all of our competitors are SEO companies. They know all about SEO. Well, they certainly should do anyway. And as you can see, we've beaten them there. So when you start doing SEO, you should think local first. So think suburb first, and then broaden it out maybe to a city. So if we change the word Joondalup to Perth and do a search on that, so we're now searching for SEO training Perth. There we are. We're still listed first, which is kind of nice. So if I click on that website there, up comes our website, and as you can see, that's our website. If I click on the back button here, there's 1 or 2 other things you can see there. As well as coming up first, you want to come up with something that basically will attract visitors. And as you can see, a nice little trick I've used here is to get my picture displayed. So that's a little picture of me. And as you can see, this person has also got a picture, and these other people have got pictures as well. Basically, when you're designing your SEO, you really want to think of a number of different things. It's all very well being found on the first page, but if you're on the first page, that means you're probably 1 of 10, and you want to make sure that your listing gets clicked on rather than your competitors. So there's all these little tricks that you can use. You know, you basically want a nice clean title there, a nice clean description, and ideally have a little picture there as well. That's the sort of thing we do on our advanced training courses. We show you how to do things like that, which is actually much easier than you might think. It's a bit like having a classified ad in the paper. If you have a classified ad with no picture, that's one thing. If you want a picture, that generally costs you more. The great thing about having a little picture displayed here, it's totally free, it doesn't cost you anything, you just have to know how to do it. And if you've got 5 items that someone's looking at, and one of them's got a little picture and that's yours, chances are they'll click on it. The other thing is that, of quite often you might want to have different phrases being searched for. So for instance, we do SEO training DVDs. So if I type in SEO training DVD, notice this time I haven't typed in Perth, I haven't typed in Joondalup, so this should work anywhere in Australia. So I type in SEO training DVD. Again, the first couple here, they paid lots of money to go there. And this one here, if you notice the web address, it's for seotraining.com.au, which is one of our websites. So that kind of answers the question. It is more than possible to get on the first page. It's more than possible to get the top of the first page. There are no guarantees. No one can guarantee that. If you ask Google themselves, they do a set of guidelines about SEO, and they basically say no one can make a guarantee about getting onto the first page. So if you're talking to an SEO company and they make all sorts of wild and woolly guarantees of this, that and the other, including guaranteeing your first page positioning, listen to what Google says. No one can guarantee that, because Google changes the rules. They change the way things work on a daily basis. And as I say, no one can make that guarantee. So don't be too impressed by these various guarantees that are out there in the SEO world. The other thing about SEO is that, as you'll hopefully see by the end of this course, the best person to do SEO is you, because SEO is not difficult. SEO is not technical. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a web designer. Basically, what you do need is good, solid, up-to-date information that's good technically. In some cases, you don't understand exactly how it works. In other cases, don't worry, just use our advice and it will work. And as you've seen there, the proof's in the pudding. And remember, all of our competitors at least should know what they're doing. So we're in the worst possible field for SEO, because by definition, all of our competitors are SEO companies. If, on the other hand, you've got, say, a plumbing business or a glazing business, or you're an accountant or whatever it happens to be, in your case, the people who run your competitor businesses, they won't necessarily be experts. And the idea is that you need to know the basics of SEO and then start building on that with some clever stuff, again, which is not difficult, it's not technical, it's just being a little bit clever. And as you'll see, most SEO techniques are really common sense. At the end of the day, as we all say to people, you should learn how to think like a search engine. If you look at a website from Google's point of view and try and think of the things that Google are looking for, and if you give Google what it's looking for, then the chances are you'll make Google happy and you'll rise up in the search engine positions. It's as simple as that. The other thing about SEO is a lot of people out there will claim that if you use their particular service, they will get you probably onto the first page in this time next week. Again, patent nonsense. For good SEO to work, you should be thinking timescales of weeks, not days, possibly months. But if you do the groundwork, it will work. But as I said, there are no guarantees. It's up to you to implement the knowledge that we can give you or other companies can give you. But at the end of the day, do the work, be methodical, take it slow, and you will see an improvement in search engine position. But as for page one positioning, no one can guarantee that. Also, don't get too obsessed with page one positioning. It's nice to have, but even if you're on page two, you're going to get business. If you get from page 2 to page 1, you'll see a sudden increase in business in most cases. And certainly if you're in the top 3, that's where you really want to be. That's where you really get the benefit of SEO. So what will you learn on this course? Well, basically this course is a short course. It's designed as an introduction to concepts more than anything else. It's really designed to show you what can be done with SEO. There's an awful lot of claims out there which are patent nonsense. If you try doing research on something like YouTube, you'll find lots and lots of videos about how to do SEO. Most of these are out of date. I mean, some of them 5, 6, 7 years old. And SEO is a moving target, so you need up-to-date information. That's the first thing. You also need correct information as opposed to just someone's opinion on YouTube. And you will find there are lots and lots and lots of videos on YouTube which, if you know in detail about how SEO works, which is not a secret, you can find this out, it's just patent, careful research. But if you look at some of the videos out there, they're just plain wrong. So for instance, you'll find numerous videos on YouTube that will tell you that something called meta keyword tags are really important for Google. Well, Google stopped using those years ago. They were important maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but these days Google completely ignores that particular option. So, as I say, you need up-to-date information, and you need good information that's reliable. And the other thing is with SEO, as we'll see in a little while, there's basically two types. There's what's called white hat, which is good SEO. It's the sort of SEO that Google approves of. And there's black hat SEO, which is basically using crafty underhand tricks, which Google really doesn't like. It's trying to trick Google. And if you start trying to trick Google, it's getting smarter by the day. It will find you out and you will get banned. I mean, huge big companies like BMW, they have been banned in the past for using tricks that Google disapproved of. Only recently, Interflora, the UK branch, got banned completely from the UK index. So even if you typed in the word Interflora, you couldn't find it. By the time you're watching this video, that might have been fixed, but certainly at the time of writing, as I say, you type in Interflora itself in the UK version of Google, and they're just not displayed, let alone searching for things like flower delivery and stuff like that. So, as I say, we won't necessarily show you how to do everything. Really, the idea of this course is to show you the sort of things you should be thinking of, the sort of things you can do, the sort of things you can't do, and the sort of things you should be aiming for over the sort of weeks and months to slowly improve your website presence. As the old saying goes, knowledge is power. So basically, once you understand some of the basic principles of how search engines work, then you can start making improvements to lots of different aspects of your website. Now, another thing it's important to realize is that there's no magic bullet for SEO. There's no one thing you can suddenly fix and tomorrow you're going to be on the first page. It doesn't work like that. The way Google ranks web pages is that basically it looks at one web page against another, and when someone types in a search for a particular phrase like say plumbers in Perth, then basically it has a whole load of pages that it knows about, and in response to that particular phrase it's got to rank one of those first in the search engine results, and somebody comes last in the search engine results. And there's lots and lots and lots of different factors, so there could easily be say 200 different factors that Google will take into account, and that's important to realize for one thing. The other thing to realize is that not all of those factors have an equal weight. So, for instance, take an obvious example. Quite often we have people saying to us, hey, we've got maybe a mobile hairdressing company based in, say, Joondalup, and we can't be found. You know, it just can't be found in Google. And then when we go and look at their website, even the words Joondalup or Perth or hairdressing is not actually displayed on the home page, or maybe not on some of the other pages either. So again, that's a very, very simple example where basically the important words are important to you and to your website. Make sure you actually use them in the text of your website. There's obviously lots of other tricks, but that's a really basic one. And it sounds kind of obvious, but we see this one over and over again. You know, people say we've got, again, maybe a plumbing company in, say, Woodside, and they might use the word plumbing, but not Woodside. So again, obvious points, most of these. But really, you've got to really think about your website, stand back, look at it from Google's point of view and say, well, if I was Google, would I understand what this page is about? Would Google know this page is about plumbing? It's in this particular suburb, it's in this particular state, it's this particular speciality. So, for instance, if you're a gas plumber, you would use the phrases gas plumber or gas plumbing within your website, and within all the various other places you can sort of hide your keywords. So really the idea is that the end of this course, which is, as I say, just a brief introduction, you'll have some ideas of what needs to be done, and then you can decide how you're going to implement those ideas. And basically it's up to you. I mean, the two basic choices are you pay someone else to do it, or you do it yourself. Paying someone else to do it is good, providing they know what they're doing. And unfortunately there's an awful lot of sharks out there who advertise themselves as SEO companies, but quite honestly know little or nothing about SEO, it would seem, just judging by results. The other way of doing it is do it yourself. That might sound frightening, but you don't need technical knowledge for SEO. At the end of it, it's your company, it's your website. The best person to do the SEO is always you, because you can always keep it on track. You can adapt it over time. So, for instance, over a period of time, you might go from, say, one emphasis to another. For instance, with our company, we do SEO consultancy. We also do SEO training, and SEO training is the main part of our business now. So we basically changed the emphasis over time. We still do consultancy, looking for details on our website, but training is really what we concentrate in now. That's really what people want to do, because increasingly people are realizing that they can do their own SEO, at least they're thinking about doing their own SEO. Well, the first question is, what is SEO? Search Engine Optimization. Well, at the end of the day, SEO is really about just getting your website found as easily as possible within the search engines. The search engines include things like Google, Bing, Yahoo, and there are others, but those are really the main ones. By far and away, the most important one is Google. So if you've got yourself finding, if you've got your website being found well in Google, chances are it'll be found well in the other ones as well, because they all use sort of similar techniques to rate web pages. Now, at the end of the day, as we'll see in a while, there are two types of SEO. There's what's called on-site SEO, which is basically changes you make on your website, and there's off-site SEO, which is basically everything else. So everything else includes things like links. So as we'll see, links from other websites to your website, one-way links are important, and quality one-way links from a well-respected site to your site, that is the sort of link you want to attract. So that's really what off-site SEO is all about. The other areas covered by off-site SEO are things like social media, so things like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and things like that, LinkedIn, Pinterest. There's a whole load of these so-called social media sites, and these days I would say it's getting yourself found well in Google is probably 50% on-site, 50% off-site SEO. You need to do both. You might find that if you've got a fairly obscure subject, just a little bit of on-site SEO might do the trick. You might suddenly find yourself on the first page. But if you're in a competitive area, like for instance chiropractors, there's an awful lot of chiropractors around. So in Perth, I've got no idea how many there are, but there seem to be an awful lot. So if you're a chiropractor Perth and you've got one particular practice, private practice, and if you want to get onto the first page, that is very competitive. So you have to do a lot of work to do that. It's still doable. It just means you're going to have to do a lot more work than, say, coming onto the first page for maybe a fish and chip shop in a particular suburb. I mean, you're going to have very little competition in that case. So, as I say, that's really what search engine optimization is all about. It's about optimizing, one way or another, your particular web pages so they come as high as possible in the search engine results when people search for your product or service. Now, take SEO seriously, don't dabble. Basically, there's an awful lot of people we come across. People ring us up and say, oh, I've done a little bit of SEO, or I bought in some links a while back to try and improve my SEO, and big surprise, we're still not being found. Well, at the end of the day, if you're going to do SEO, take it seriously. It's not difficult. Even if you outsource it, it shouldn't be too expensive. And at the end of the day, I mean, if you pay for money to go in something like this, good old Yellow Pages, if you want a lineage ad in there, fine. But if you want one of these big display ads, I have no idea what they charge, apart from the fact people tell me they spend an awful lot of money on Yellow Pages. I can't actually remember the last time I actually looked at Yellow Pages. I honestly can't remember the last time I looked up a business in Yellow Pages, and that's increasingly common these days. For some businesses it works, in which case fine, stick with it. But for a lot of businesses now, the first port of call is Google. They just Google something, they want to find it, and if they find you, you get the business. It's as simple as that. And as I say, I've no idea what it costs to advertise in Yellow Pages, but I'm guessing it's certainly not that cheap. If you're advertising yourself, you probably know the cost yourselves. The great thing about websites is websites are incredibly cheap. The hosting of a website is minimal. You get a good web hosting service for under $100 a year. You can get your domain name for about $10 a year, and then after that, if you promote it right, it's kind of free. So why would you want a 2-page ad or 1-page ad in Yellow Pages? For the cost, there is just no comparison. Obviously, as I said, it does change from one business to another business. It depends what you're advertising. If the particular market you're looking at is an older market, then chances are, yes, they'll use Yellow Pages. But certainly a younger market, I mean, they don't even use computers these days. They do all their searching on their mobile phones. That's the sort of market you've got to chase, because increasingly that's important. Now, anyone can do SEO. You don't have to be technical. That's the really nice thing about SEO. With SEO, what you do need is good, up-to-date, real advice, as opposed to someone's opinion or some nonsense you can find on YouTube, looking at out-of-date videos. Or again, if you just search in Google for how to do SEO, there are a whole load of free this, that, and the others. Most of which are just trying to get you to view their pages so that you might click on one of the adverts on there, and the people running the websites make some money from you clicking on the adverts. These sort of advert-driven sites. Loads and loads of those sort of low-quality sites. There are a couple of decent SEO sites which are basically run by larger companies, and you can get good advice from them, but again, it generally involves signing up, parting with money for the really good information. So as I say, the good news is that anyone can do SEO. You don't have to be a programmer, you don't need technical knowledge, you don't need to be a web designer. What you do need to do is you have to commit to learning a little bit of basic information, which is not difficult, it's not technical, and then you have to commit to applying it. Again, in the past I have run SEO courses, and I generally find when I'm running SEO courses, it's people who are running their own businesses. They're the ones who make the best out of the courses that we run, because they actually go away and apply it. Quite a few times I've done SEO courses for corporates, and it's amazing how often people come along, sit in a course, leave at 5 o'clock, whatever it is, go away, absolutely no change to the website whatsoever. You think, well, why did they bother? Maybe it was just a day out, I don't know. But the good news is that when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, if your competitors are big companies and you're a small company, providing you commit to doing the work, you're in a better position than they are, because you don't need to have a meeting about doing something on the website. You can just go and do it, which means you can react fast as new things and new ideas come out. You can implement those. It also means that you can keep making regular changes to your website. Basically, as I say, giving Google the things that it likes, and you just keep going, and because it's your business, if you keep going, eventually you'll find the position is just rising up and up and up, and eventually, if you're not on the first page at the moment, you will be, all things being equal. Obviously, as I say, it does depend on your business. If you've got a very, very competitive business, and if you're up against a whole load of other companies who are also up to date on their SEO and do it themselves probably, you're going to find that more difficult. But as you saw in an earlier section, we're in an SEO company. We run an SEO company. We run an SEO training company. And as you've seen, we're just a tiny little company. We're not some big corporate. I mean, basically the three of us, that's it. And, small is good as far as the internet is concerned, because small means you can react easily. And if things are not quite right, you go and change them. You don't have to have a meeting about changing them at some point in the future. That's really my point. So small is good. SEO and the return on investment. As I've already indicated, if your idea of marketing is to spend heaps of money and give it to Yellow Pages, well, in some businesses that works. For a lot of businesses now, people I talk to, they say, well, hey, it was renewal time for Yellow Pages, and we thought, no, we're not doing it anymore, and we want to see about promoting our website instead. Well, the great thing is there's very little comparison in the costs between a big advert in Yellow Pages and doing the SEO, especially if you're going to do it yourself. It is that easy to do it yourself if you've got the right knowledge. If you compare the cost of a website and your SEO activities with advertising on the radio, on the TV, or newspapers, again, there's no real comparison. And the great thing is that with a website, it's out there 24/7. Every single day of the week, of the year, it's out there. It's basically advertising your product or your service. Your customers come to you. You don't have to go and get them. So again, that's good, because if you're looking for customers, if they're coming to you in the first place, chances are they're interested. You just got to make sure that you've got exactly the product or the service or the price that they want. So again, it's very much a nice situation you're in with the website, because you are attracting customers who already are interested by the very fact they found your website by searching on it. So I'd say you just got to make sure your website looks better than your competitors, and after that, all things being equal, it comes down to the usual things like prices, terms, deals, all the rest of it. But the important point is getting access to that business in the first place. At the end of the day, if you've got an important keyword phrase you'd like to get found on, and you type that into Google and you're on page 6, you might as well just not be there. If you're not on the first 2 pages, at best, there's no point in having a website, to be honest. Obviously, that does change it for some people, because in some cases they might have a business card, and the business card might have the web address on there. So a lot of people use the website purely as a kind of online brochure, if you like. What we're talking about in this course is using the website to attract new customers. If people know your web address, chances are they'll type it in. If you work for Microsoft, for instance, they don't have to think about that. They'll just type in www.microsoft.com. If, on the other hand, you've got a website like joesglazingbusiness.com, people aren't just going to type that in on the off chance. They've got to find you via the search engines, or possibly read an address on a business card. But as I say, that just shows you that you can use things like business cards and headed notepaper and the rest, obviously, to point people to your website, and again, that will get you more visitors. Now, what is possible and what is not possible with SEO? Well, it's important to realize that there are limitations to SEO. You can't, for instance, just do a whole load of changes to your website and expect to be found on your chosen keyword phrases this time next week. The first thing is, good SEO takes time. Good SEO takes effort. So you've got to make, in some cases, fundamental changes to the way your website is displayed, to what's contained on your website, to how it's structured. You've got to think about things. That's really the main thing. You can't just simply go off, throw some money at the problem and hope it's going to be fixed. You can try third-party SEO companies to do the work for you, but as I said, there are some good ones and an awful lot of bad ones. So if you're going to do that, be very, very careful how you do it. Do your research properly. It's definitely a question of buyer beware the SEO world. The other thing is, if you do the careful SEO and you do your research properly and you take your time, then you will find potentially the benefits are incredible. But as I say, you shouldn't expect instant results. The other thing that you shouldn't expect is, as was previously mentioned, you should be realistic about what people are going to search for. Because people, as I say, if they're searching for a plumbing company in Perth, they're not just going to type in the word plumbing or plumbers. They're going to put some qualifying words in, like plumbing Joondalup, plumbing Ocean Reef, plumbing Perth, whatever it happens to be. So those are the sort of things you should think about. That is possible. Just trying to get found to the word plumbers, it is possible theoretically, but it's going to be very difficult. And also, you don't really want to do it. It's a waste of effort. Now, off-site SEO is basically everything else. Everything's off your website. So as I say, primarily it's about links and social media. And these days, it's the quality of the links that matter, not the quantity of links that matter. And it's important to realize that there's lots and lots of things you can do to increase your SEO, but there's also things you can do that can harm your SEO. And having links from bad areas or bad neighborhoods, as they're called, they can actually harm your website these days. So if you'd responded in the past to some sort of spammy email that offered you maybe 1,000 links to your website for $20 or something daft like that, a lot of people fall for this because they just don't know any better. If you've done that in the past, you might find you do actually have 1,000 links to your website, but they're from what are called bad neighborhoods. They're from websites that Google has marked as a little bit dodgy. And links from bad neighborhoods, they will damage the positioning of your website in the search engine results now. There are ways of getting around this, and that's the sort of thing we cover on other courses, but it is important to realize this, that links from dodgy websites will harm your SEO. Simple as that. Different search engines. It's important to realize there's not just Google, there's a whole bunch of other search engines. So there's Google, Bing, Yahoo. Those really are the top three. But there's dozens of others. In fact, there's hundreds of others if you really wanted to start searching for them. Don't worry about all the other ones. Just concentrate on those three. Basically, you've got Google, Bing, Yahoo. That's it. By far and away, the most important one is Google. Gets most of the traffic. That's where most of your potential business is going to come from. And basically, make sure that your website is listed on these, let alone found. So, for instance, you've probably checked out Google, but make sure you check out things like Yahoo and Bing, and just type in your company name or your company web address and search for those within the search engines. If you can't find them, chances are for one reason or another, the search engine doesn't know about your particular website, in which case submit it to the search engine, and after a period of time it'll start being picked up and you should show up. The trophy search engine is always going to be Google, but do consider the other ones, things like Bing and Yahoo and what have you. Now, how search engines work. The first thing to realize is that a search engine doesn't magically somehow know about every single website that's out there on the internet. Basically, the search engines, each different search engine, only knows about websites that have been submitted to it, or that over time it's found by following links from other websites. So that's the first thing. So it is possible that Google, for instance, has never actually found your website. You've never actually submitted it for inclusion in the Google index. So if you've got a particular company name, type that into Google, see if you can be found. If you can't be found on that, type your actual web address in, the www, etc., into the search and see if you can be found on that particular search. If you can't, that means that Google, for one reason or another, doesn't know about you, in which case you need to submit your particular website to the search engine. Now, it's important to realize that Google has these things called robots or crawlers, and they're little bits of software. And what they do is they go off on their own and search the internet, and they follow links from one place to another. So they follow links from one site to another site. Once they've got to a site, they follow links within the site from one page to another. So that basically over time, if Google has found your particular website, it will start understanding about all the different pages within your website. Robots, spiders and crawlers. If you've never heard of these things, don't worry about them, but basically what it means is that Google has automated software it sends out to basically crawl the internet. And what happens is these spiders, robots, crawlers, they're different words for the same thing basically. They're little bits of software that basically go out and find a website, then they examine all the links on that website, and if it finds a link to another website, it goes off and explores that website as well. So basically over time, Google will find most of the internet sites that are out there, the ones that are linked to from other websites. This is why having other websites linking to you is really important, because once Google finds that it's found a website and it's got linked to your website, and especially if the first website was one that was approved of by Google, that Google liked, then basically you're going to get the benefit of that link. So it's just important to realize that there are these things out there. They will find your website. Once these spiders or crawlers found your website, they'll go off, and periodically they'll come back again. And what Google is looking for is change. Google likes change. Google likes what's called freshness, which basically means new content. So basically, if Google has indexed all your pages on your website and then goes off and then later on comes back, if it finds exactly the same pages with exactly the same content, it'll say, well, fair enough, it's the website's still there, but it's not particularly interesting, it hasn't changed since the last visit. If, on the other hand, you've made a few changes or you've added extra pages, Google will say, oh, this is more interesting, this has got fresh content, which is what it's looking for, because Google these days is on record of basically saying it likes quality websites, ones that are up to date, have relevant, up-to-date information. So the more changes, the more often you make changes, the better as far as Google is concerned, which is why as someone who owns a website, you should make it your business that every so often, even if it's just once a month or ideally once a week, or just on a regular basis, just make sure you have new content, so when the robots come back, they've got something else to interest them, and that will be noted by Google, the fact there is new content there. Now, organic versus paid for results. Organic results is really what SEO is all about. Organic search results are the free ones. They're the ones that are listed in the main body of the search results, whereas the paid for results are listed across the top and down the side. So if we bring up an example of Google here, in this case you can see I've done a search and it's got 1, 2, 3 web results at the top here. Now these are what are called paid results. They're advertising. If we just try doing a different search here, let's do SEO training Perth. No, let's try SEO. Let's just try SEO training. Right, in this case what you can see is we've got results at the top here and results down the side. And this is what you'd normally expect to see. So basically these results here and those results there, the people who are displayed here are paid an awful lot of money. It's like a bidding process. The way you get displayed here is you basically put a certain amount of money into the pot and say you're willing to pay a certain amount of money per ad that's displayed, and Google goes away and works all this out, and basically it says, right, in this case this particular website here is paid more than this one, which is why they're displayed above that one, and this in turn has paid less. So that kind of defines the pecking order in which these are displayed. Now sometimes these can be quite cheap, sometimes they're quite expensive. Again, it depends on the business you're in, but you might find that in some cases, because it's such a competitive business, you might want to try this. As I say, they can work out expensive, but if they get results, and basically if you're making more money than the ads are costing, then obviously it's worth thinking about. What I am particularly interested in is not paying for the Google ads here. What I like are the free adverts. So as I say, this one, and this one, they pay to be there. This one here, that's free. The reason, and that's my website, the reason that my website is listed there, because I did the work to get it displayed, in this case at the top of the results on page 1 when you search for SEO Training Perth. So with organic SEO, you're concentrating on getting your website at the top, ideally, of the organic search results. And as I say, the great thing about these is, apart from the time involved and the effort involved in getting them there, they're free. As I say, these ones at the top, these can cost an awful lot of money. In some cases, it depends on the business, because some businesses are more competitive than others. But certainly things like, say, insurance, for instance, I've heard of people paying $7, $8, $9, $10 just for the advert to be clicked on. And the trouble with these is I won't actually do it because I'll cost them money, but if I actually clicked on this ad up here, at that point they would have paid the money. It doesn't matter whether they make any money out of me or not, just simply if I click on that, it will cost this company money. So basically every time a paid advert is clicked on, it costs the owner of that website money. With this one here, it doesn't matter if one person or 1,000 people click on it, it doesn't cost me a bean. That's the beauty of organic search results. Now, many YouTube videos that you'll find are out of date. It's important to realize this. A lot of people these days are realizing the need for SEO, and the first port of call is to try and get it done as cheap as possible. And the thing that occurs to most people is to go to YouTube, search that, and look for videos on how to do SEO. You will find some good ones on there, but the vast majority of them may have been good maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, but now they're out of date, and in some cases it can actually harm your search engine positioning results. So do be very, very careful when you start doing research on SEO. You need up-to-date information. You need information that's valid today, because as I say, SEO is a changing subject. Almost on a daily basis, Google makes slight changes in the way it ranks different web results one against the other. So it's important to keep up to date. Now, Google keeps changing. You've got something called Panda and Penguin, which alarmed a lot of people recently. If you've never heard of Panda and Penguin, they were basically just code names for new versions of Google that came out. By new versions, I mean new ways in which it display the search engine results. Because as I say, whenever you type in something on the first page, someone's got to be first, someone's got to be last. And Google uses what's called an algorithm, which is a fancy word for mathematical formula, and basically it has maybe 200 different things that it takes into account when deciding who comes first, who comes last. And I say literally on a daily basis, these are tinkered around with by Google. But these were two major ones, Penguin and Panda. They came out some time ago, and this upset an awful lot of website owners, because a lot of website owners were happily sitting there on page one. They'd been on page one for quite some time. They'd done maybe a little bit of SEO, and some of it maybe might have been slightly dodgy, should we say. And this was Google's way of cleaning out what it regarded as slightly dodgy sites, which might not have been dodgy in the sense that the website owners had gone out of the way to break the rules or anything, but possibly they might in the past have employed an SEO company that wasn't exactly adhering to the rules, and maybe some shortcuts being taken. And basically, increasingly, if you do try and take shortcuts with SEO, Google finds out, and you will suffer. The basic point here is there are no shortcuts with SEO. You need to know the basic ground rules. Then if you really want to go for it and make as sure as possible that you can be on the first page, you need to know all the little tricks and all the little extras. So as I say, there is a certain basic amount of SEO that anyone can do, and then with just a little bit of knowledge you can apply some extra tricks, the sort that most people won't do. So if you've got sort of 90% of websites that your competitors, and they're using the obvious things, if you're one of the 10% who goes beyond the obvious, stands to reason you're probably going to show up better than the others. So there's a lot you can do, yourself, and you do see results. But as I say, the important thing is to realize that Google keeps changing, and every so often it changes in a major way. Over-optimization hurts. These days, a lot of people have realized the need for SEO, and they might have done a little bit of basic research and then gone hell for leather trying to do it themselves without too much proper information about what to do. So, for instance, if you've heard that if you've got a plumbing company in Perth, you need the words plumbing company Perth within your website, then a lot of people might have gone slightly overboard and repeated these sort of phrases over and over again. So if you take a ridiculous example, let's say you're selling widgets. If you have a phrase in your website that says, hey, we're the Perth widget company, we produced the best widgets in Perth, and we've produced widgets for the last 50 years, and we have blue widgets, green widgets, yellow widgets, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Basically, if you just sort of endlessly repeat the same thing over and over again, Google is smart enough to realize that you're trying to spam the rules here, and you will be penalized for things like that. So it's very important that you don't over-optimize your website, because there are penalties for this now. Back in the day, you could use every trick in the book and then some, and you'd probably get away with it. But these days, you have to be a little bit more subtle. So play by the rules that Google sort of announces, but the trouble is Google doesn't tell you exactly where the rules are, and they don't always tell you when the rules change. So you need to be a little bit conservative with your SEO these days, and just take it slow and look for long-term results. Okay, what is a web server? Well, you don't need to know the details about this, but basically a web server is a computer. It's up there somewhere on the internet, and from a company point of view, what you do is you go to a company called a web hosting service, and they will host your internet site for you. What actually happens is your website is physically contained on the hard disk of one of their web servers, and when someone types in your URL, as it's called, your web address, what actually gets seen by your visitors to your website is the details that are actually stored on their hard disks, which are on the web servers. So as I say, you don't need to worry too much about this, but you just need to know really what a web server is. It's basically essentially renting some space on a hard disk on a computer that's permanently connected to the internet. You can actually have your own web hosting computers if you wanted to, but most people wouldn't bother that, because then you have to maintain them, and that is quite technical. Not difficult, but it's quite technical, and it's not really recommended for most companies. Certainly most small businesses, they just use what's called shared hosting, and they just rent some web space, and in most cases it will cost you $100, $200 a year, something like that. and you have a nice reliable service that does the job. The index or home page. Now, every site has a home page, and it's generally called something like index or home. Sometimes it might have a file name extension like HTML or PHP. But the important thing to realize is this is the loading page. So for instance, if you want to see the Microsoft homepage, you type in www.microsoft.com. Just simply type that into your web browser and it'll become the homepage for Microsoft. Now, from an SEO point of view, you want to pay particular attention to your home page. You want to make this the page that's particularly attractive to Google and the other search engines. So, for instance, things like the title and description, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, you really want to get those exactly right for your home page. Things like your headings and the text that's displayed within the actual page itself. Again, pay particular attention on the home page to these sort of items. It's the single most important page on your entire website in many ways. Once Google has become aware of your home page, then of course it can follow the links on your home page to the other pages, and it can index those as well. But as I say, it's the home page normally is the first page that Google will find on your website, and that has to be as good as possible from Google's point of view. PageRank. This is another concept that you should know about. It's not difficult. It's basically a ranking that Google gives to every single page on the internet, and the ranking goes from 0, which is frankly awful, up to 10, which is a theoretical maximum. These days you never actually see a 10 because it's one of those graphs that it's not a straight line, it's what's called a logarithmic scale. So basically, instead of going in a straight line, it goes sort of like that and then gets steeper and steeper. So even something like Microsoft and IBM and what have you, they're unlikely to have a 10 these days. So I say 10 is a theoretical maximum number you can have, and 0 is the lowest number. It is also possible to have an NA, a not ranked value for this as well, which is obviously not good. Now what I've loaded up here is something called Firefox. You may be familiar with using the Microsoft Internet Explorer, and Firefox is what's called an alternative web browser. We'll see more on this in a later chapter, but the nice thing about Firefox is you can place add-ins into this particular browser. So if I type in a website like www.forseotraining.com.au, right, once this site is loaded up, it will tell you what the page rank is for this particular page. And as you can see, this particular page has a page rank of 4. And you might think, oh, if it goes from 0 to 10, that's not particularly good. But remember, it's a logarithmic scale, so there's a hell of a difference between, say, 3 and 4, or indeed 4 and 5. So this is one of our websites. If I go to another of our websites, let's just try this. So this website, it's cctglobal.com. As you can see, this one's got a page rank of 5. And as I say, the order of magnitude from a 4 to a 5 is enormous. So basically, the higher the page rank, the better. Now, there are some SEO companies who say, oh, page rank doesn't matter anymore. And the reason they'll tell you that is because their page rank is probably not that great. I could embarrass some of these companies by typing in their web addresses and displaying their page rank, but I'll let you do that and draw your own conclusions. PageRank is important because if I bring up Internet Explorer here, in Internet Explorer, if you want to, you can install what's called the Google toolbar, and if you do that, that'll also show you the PageRank. That's another way of seeing PageRank. And if you do that, the actual PageRank number will come up and tell you this is, I'm paraphrasing it, something like this is Google's view of the importance of this page. So PageRank is important, and as I say, the higher the PageRank, the better. So you'll see how to install this little program or later on, and you should basically go and use it on your own website and see what kind of PageRank you've got. If your website is not showing up too well, chances are it's got a PageRank of 1 or 2 or 3. It's got a low PageRank, and one of your immediate priorities should be to increase the PageRank. one little aside, as I say, the thing about SEO is it's knowing the details. PageRank is something that is important. It's a Google thing, so obviously it is important from a Google perspective. But the other thing to notice about PageRank is that sometimes I've taught people on courses and they've become obsessed with the PageRank, and after sort of weeks of messing about, they ring me up and say, oh, my PageRank hasn't increased. Well, it probably has increased, but the PageRank is only publicly updated sort of every couple of months by Microsoft, or rather by Google. And you might find that you've been doing SEO work, you don't see any visible increase in your PageRank, then suddenly a couple of weeks or maybe 2 months or 3 months later, all of a sudden you jump up from maybe a 2 to a 4 or a 2 to a 5. So as I say, with PageRank, it's important to remember that the numbers as publicly released by Google, they're only updated every few months. So PageRank, try and get the highest PageRank you can, because that's a good indication as any as what Google thinks of your particular web pages. The other thing about PageRank is that PageRank is done at a page level. It's not assigned to your website as a whole. So every single page on your website will probably have a different PageRank number, and you want each one of those pages to have as high a PageRank number as possible. Right, another concept you need to know about is link juice. Basically, the idea of link juice is that if you have a website that Google really likes and it's got a high page rank, then if you can have a link from one of their pages to your website, then the link juice will basically flow from the other website to your website. And that's what quality links are all about. It's about having link juice flowing in your direction. In the same way, if you've got a website that you own and it's got quite a nice page rank, you should be very, very wary of linking to other sites unless you do it in the right way, because the page rank can flow from your site to somebody else's site. There are ways of getting around this. It's called no-follow links, and we cover that in later courses. But it's just one of those things you should know about, that basically the reason that incoming links are important is you want basically incoming links from websites that have a high page rank, and basically you kind of leech off their value. As far as Google is concerned, the page juice flows from their site to your site, and that's really what you want. What you don't want is to start wasting the link juice on your website and have lots of links to other people's websites, because if you've got a half decent page rank, it just means they are benefiting from you, and as much as possible you want it so that you benefit from others, not the other way around. Right, are you paying for past mistakes? As I mentioned briefly earlier on, Google introduced a penalty some time ago, so that if you have links from another website to your website, and if that other website is in some way has been penalized by Google, then you will suffer for that. So you might get away with maybe one or two, even that can harm you, but certainly maybe in the past, if you'd responded to a spammy type email offering you loads and loads of links for a small amount of money, then you might find you've got thousands and thousands of links from basically dodgy websites flowing towards you. And Google basically takes the view now that you shouldn't have those sort of spammy links, and if you do have lots of them, you will get penalized. Again, there is a disavow tool that Google introduced some time ago, and in more advanced courses we'll tell you how to use that tool. It's very straightforward to do. Basically just tell Google, hands up, sorry, can you disavow these links? It doesn't mean the links will be removed. They'll still be displayed on offending other websites pointing towards you. It just means that if you ask Google to ignore them, Google says, fair enough, we'll take that message on board, and we'll no longer count those links in the algorithms for ranking your particular page. So again, as one of those examples where a little bit of knowledge can be really, really useful, because A, you have to know how many other sites are linking to you, and as we'll see, that's quite straightforward to do. And then you have to be able to identify dodgy sites and see if they're pointing to you. And then finally, you have to know how to disavow these links. And those three little bits of information just on their own can actually make quite a big difference in some cases to the positioning of a website in search engine results.